I'm now.
Okay, I got 7 o'clock straight up. Mike's been working through the pre-meeting. Hopefully he'll keep working now the meeting gets started. I take it, Fact TV's all set. Well, good evening, everybody. We're at the, this is Wednesday, February 26th, 7 p.m. We're at the Bellows Falls Union High School newly renovated auditorium. This is quite a surreal sight. I'm going to remind everybody that, we'll proceed on the Robert's Rules of Order, but every registered voter tonight has a vote on the floor tonight, and everything except Article 5. I'm going to read the warning. The legal voters of Bellows Falls Union High School District are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Bellows Falls Union High School in the town of Westminster, Vermont on Wednesday, February 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. to act on Articles 1 through 4 and 6. The legal voters of the Bellows Falls Union High School District are hereby warned to vote by Australian ballot on Article 5 at the following locations and times on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Polls will open on March 4th, 2025 at the following places stated below. Athens, the Athens Town Office at 25 Brookline Road from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Grafton Elementary School at 58 School Street, Grafton, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Rockingham, Masonic Temple, 61 Westminster Street, Bellows Falls, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Westminster, the Westminster Fire Station, 103 Westminster, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Article 1 is to hear the report of the Bellows Falls Union High School District offers and to take action. Article 2 is to elect a moderator for 1-year term beginning July 1st, 2025. Article 3 to elect a district clerk for 1-year term beginning July 1st, 2025. Article 4 to elect a district treasurer for 1-year term beginning July 1st, 2025. Article 5, shall the voters of the Bellows Falls Union High School District authorize the school board to expend $8,536,884, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The Bellows Falls Union High School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil education spending of $13,022.48, which is 18.44% higher than per pupil education spending of the current year. Article 6, shall the voters of the Bellows Falls Union High School District apply the sum of $219,262 for the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to reduce expenditures in fiscal year 2026 in order to reduce taxes. Article 7, shall the voters of the Bellows Falls Union High School District authorize the school board to create a tax relief fund with the sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to reduce expenditures in future years in order to reduce taxes. Article 8, shall the voters approve an annual compensation to the school directors in the amount of board chair $800, board members $700, district treasurer $800, district clerk $125. Signed by the 9 active board members. Athens, the Athens seat is vacant at this point. Let's start on my left and have the board members and other people at the table introduce themselves.
My name is Jamie Starro. I'm on the high school board and I represent Westminster.
Good evening, Kelly O'Ryan, principal here at the high school.
Hi, I'm Chris Austin, and I represent Rockingham on the Bellows Falls Union High School board.
I'm Priscilla Lambert. I represent Rockingham on the Bellows Falls Union High School Board.
I'm Rob Welch, chair of the high school board representing Rockingham.
I'm Paul Vahosky. I represent Rockingham on the Bellows Falls Union High School Board.
Andy Haas, superintendent.
June Streeter representing Westminster.
Kim Heath representing Rockingham. Mary Howard Fader representing Grafton.
Thank you. Article 1 is to hear the report of the Bellows Falls Union High School District officers and to take action thereon. Reports are part of the supervisory union publication. Some of you that are here, there was a table with copies of these on the back. First question I have, are there any additions or corrections to the Union High School reports?
I just want to say that the voting for Westminster is not at the fire station. It says Westminster Institute. That was incorrectly.
Is the address correct?
Nope, it's Route 5.
Good, fine. Okay.
I don't know what number it is.
Westminster Institute. Okay, so it's the first time I've had a correction to a warning, but so Westminster, the Westminster Institute, you said.
Yes.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections?
Yeah, I believe that on page 30, if you look across the top at the description, it states FY '24 budget, FY '24 actual. Then it states FY '24 actual again. That's actually FY '25 budget. The next column would be FY '26 budget, and the last column would be the difference.
Everybody have that? Do we need to go over that again?
Yeah. Over it again, please.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, ma'am.
are you going to do a motion?
We will, yeah.
So FY, on page 30,
Yeah,
expenditures, first column is FY '24 budget.
yeah,
Second column is FY '24 actual.
okay,
Third column is FY '25 budget.
okay,
Fourth column is FY '26 budget.
okay,
And the last column would be difference.
okay, thank you.
Any other additions or corrections? Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot at the beginning to ask people to state their names and town from.
Do we just add?
I'm sorry,
Stan also.
Stan, yeah?
I have a question on page 19 of the board chair's report. I pulled this off the school website, so I'm not sure if that's current. There's surplus of funds. The board has agreed to ask the voters to apply the sum of $219,260 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to reduce expenditures in the fiscal year 2006. So, page 19.
Yep.
This is off the website, so I don't know if there's a copy in here somewhere that's
The
correct.
book says the same, so.
You guys have that as well?
Yes.
Or we reduced it down in 2006? I would just like to go back in time and do a couple different things if that's possible.
Yeah, it's page 19.
So what year is it? 2026?
Fiscal year 24, and then
This is the last bullet.
All 2000, fiscal year 2000.
Jason, it continues into the next sentence with another resignation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dashboard on.
What is the correct year?
The surplus of funds bullets? On bullet,
Instead of 2006, should it be 2026?
It's 2026 in
Yeah.
the first sentence, so it should be reduced expenditures in the fiscal year 2026 in order to,
Yep,
and then the second sentence where it's
2000,
219,262 from the fiscal year 2024.
perfect.
okay.
Thank you.
Other additions or corrections? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the reports as corrected?
I'll make a motion to accept the reports as corrected with the corrections.
I'll second that.
Rob Welch makes the motion, seconded by Paul Bohosky. Is there any discussion on anything in the reports that's not included in Article 5? None. Mr. Lambert?
David Lambert, Rockingham. I want to note a couple of things missing from the annual report and have been, well, there's no report of last year's annual meeting in these reports. Secondly, it's been missing for years, but Vermont statute 16 VSA 165 requires an annual report of student progress, and that hasn't been done for years.
Other questions or comments?
This is Roderick, basically Barry Rockingham. I just wanted to clarify, are we talking about the whole report, or are we gonna go through bullet points? Or,
No, we're talking about the reports pertaining to Bellows Falls Union High School District as they appear. Any other discussion? No. Hearing none, we're ready for the question. The motion is to approve the reports as corrected. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 2 is to elect a moderator for a one-year term beginning July 1st, 2025.
I make the motion to to elect Don Caponcelli for a one-year term beginning July 1st, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, Julie Streeter has the nomination. Are there any other nominations for moderator? Would somebody like to move the ballots be closed and the clerk cast one ballot for Caponcelli for moderator? Rob Wells makes that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tom Pelosi. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It looks like I'm on board to reach you folks next year. We're going. Article 3 is to elect a district clerk for one-year term beginning July 1st, 2025. Kim has that motion.
Yes, I make a motion to elect Kathleen Kelly as district clerk for a one-year term beginning July 1st, 2025.
Kathleen Kelly.
Kathleen, you go by Neha, don't you?
No, it's Kelly now.
Okay.
Kathleen Kelly is nominated. Rob Wells has the second. And any other nominations for district clerk?
Mr. Chair, I move to close the question and cast on both Kathleen, please.
Okay, so the language moves that the nominations be closed and the clerk cast one vote for Kathleen Kelly. Might need a second on that. For second. Chris Housen, second. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kathleen Kelly is elected for another year. Article 4, to elect the district treasurer for one-year term beginning July 1st, 2025. Mary?
I make a motion to elect Kathleen Kelly as district treasurer for a one-year term beginning July 1st, 2025.
Kathleen Kelly is nominated.
I second that.
Seconded by Rob Russell. Are there any other nominations for district treasurer?
This is moderator. I move to close nominations and the clerk cast one vote for Kathleen Kelly.
David Lambert moves the nominations be closed and the clerk casts one ballot for Kathleen Kelly.
Second.
First and second by Priscilla Lambert. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kathleen Kelly is elected as district treasurer. Article 5, we're not voting on the floor, but this is time for discussion. And the reading. Paul, let me let you know.
Sure. Well, I move that the voters of the Bellows Falls Union High School District authorize the school board to expend $8,536,884 which is the amount that the board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The Bellows Union High School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in a per-pupil education spending of $13,022.48, which is 18.44% higher than the per-pupil education spending of the current year. This article is warned to be voted on by Australian ballot at your local polling place on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. And after the second, I would like to have the opportunity for discussion or presentation.
Well, Rob Wells has the second. We had discussion on this article.
All right, so if I could. The proposed 2025-2026 BFUHS budget is $8,536,884, or an increase of $595,388 from last year's budget of $7,941,496, or a 7.5% increase. We also have a surplus for fiscal year 2024. Bellows Falls Union High School has a surplus of $287,742. WNESU has a surplus of $150,782 for a total surplus of $438,524. And Article 6 of the BFUHS board is proposing to use half of the surplus, or $219,262, to reduce expenditures for FY26 in order to reduce taxes. This $219,262 would reduce the proposed increase of $595,388 to an increase of $376,126. It would therefore reduce the 7.50 increase by 2.76% to equal 4.74% increase of new money. And Article 7 of the BFUHS board is proposing to place the other half of the surplus, or $219,262, into a newly created tax relief fund to be used to reduce taxes in the future. When we look at the 25-26 proposed budget, we see the major changes as follows. Teacher salaries are down $183,617, or 2.1%. Administrative salaries are up $91,392, or 1.1%. Health insurance is up $262,848, or 3%. The SU assessment is up $179,854, or 2.1%. Principal and interest on our bond is up $152,977, or 1.8%. As we review the major changes, we see the following: administrative salaries, health insurance, the SU assessment, principal and interest on the bond. We see an increase of $685,831. And when you minus the teacher salary decrease, we come in at $502,831 of the $595,388 total increase. As we look at staffing and positions, we see the following. First, we will look at new positions or positions moving from grants to the local budget. Added, a half-time athletic trainer, salary and benefits, $60,000. A medical para, salaries and benefits equal $50,000. A general ed para for AEP, which will replace a full-time teacher, salaries and benefits of $50,000. A half-time math position is moving from a grant to the local budget. salaries and benefits of $60,000. And the Dean of Students, salary and benefits of $120,000. Looking at the reduction in this budget of staffing, English is moving from 5 FTEs to 4 FTEs with a retirement. Social studies is moving from 4 FTEs to 3 FTEs. We're cutting a .67 phys ed position. We're cutting a .67 choral position, and we're cutting a full-time secretary out of the budget. We have a capital reserve fund of $1.5 million. We have spent or will spend by board action the following: $54,000 on tennis court repair, $15,000 on tree removal, $14,000 on Hadley Field bathrooms, and $16,100 on a new tractor, totaling $99,100, leaving $1,400,900 in the capital reserve fund. As the motion indicated, the per pupil education spending will be $13,022.48, or 18.44% higher than the per pupil education spending of the current year. The question is, with a 7.5% increase in the bottom line of the budget, how can there be an 18.44 per pupil education spending hike? Two things have changed that have drove the increase. First, the overall budget of $8,536,884 has increased by $595,388. And the second, the number of equalized students has decreased from 713 students to 654 students. This is a decrease of 59 students. In FY25, we had a budget of $7,941,496 minus $100,000 of offsetting revenue, creating a calculation of $7,841,496 divided by the 713.16 equalized students, or a per pupil education spending of $10,995.11. In FY26, we have a proposed budget of $8,536,884 minus $25,000 of offsetting revenue, creating a calculation of $8,511,884 divided by 653.77 equalized students, or a per pupil education spending of $13,019.69. Therefore, we see $13,019.69 minus the $10,995.11, or a $2,024.58 increase in education spending per equalized student, or an 18.44% increase. Thank you.
That's a lot. Other questions, non-discussion, Paul, I see you.
Yeah, Paul Reese from Bellows Falls. This is I'm really impressed with the school. It looks like a college campus, and it really looks beautiful. So I'd like to thank all of you for your hard work and everything that you've done. But my question is, maybe you know the answer right off. How many kids are in this high school right now? Is there 300?
It says 305 in the report.
Okay, 305. How many students, if the state or the governor said, make it happen, could you fit 300 more kids in the school? It was originally built for 702. Could it fit another 300 students here? With the redesign, it looks beautiful. It looks like more green space. Can anyone answer if we could or not? Or is 300 the capacity?
No, I mean, the capacity is the capacity of the building, and so
So it holds 710 students it could?
you could hold up to
Okay,
700 students.
my suggestion then, once again, it's a beautiful campus. I looked at my Rockingham town book. It says there was only 21 births in Rockingham, and there were 41 deaths. So, Andy, I hate to throw it at you, but I honestly believe that a school could be closed in this district, and either the 7th, 8th grade could be funneled up here, and either the Saxons River School could be closed, or the Bellows Falls Middle School. And I know you would need more staff members, and the budget would go up. But I honestly believe, based on the numbers I'm seeing and what the capacity is, you need to bring 300 more kids in, either from another district, another school, somebody needs to close Compass School, but this school needs to be filled. That's my comment.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mike Stack. My thoughts are that this budget is going exactly in the wrong direction. Last year across the state, there was many 30% budgets that were double digit that were voted down. I think this is a 6 times multiple of inflation. And I understand 10 of the 18 is you've lost 10% of your population, 8 of it roughly is your spending. But when you're losing population like that, you can't continue to spend at up high single digit rates. That's just putting too much of a burden on the taxpayer. And I think setting up our taxpayers for another double digit increase on property taxes is just it's unreasonable burden. And I think it's going in the face of the direction that we saw from the election this past fall. So I felt that I needed to speak up for the taxpayer who I work a lot with, and I know how many people are struggling out there to pay their property taxes. We've got a serious problem in this state in terms of affordability. One of the reasons I believe that the population is declining in this state in terms of young people, they can't afford to live here. So they're leaving. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling situation. So again, I think that a double-digit increase in the school budget, and I have a lot of respect for all you people. I've worked with a lot of you. It's just unreasonable, and I think in this economic environment, it's going too far.
More discussion on Article 5. Oh, is there more discussion on Article 5? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would name is Jason Perry. I do have a lot of respect for a majority of the board members up there. I worked with all of you last year. I would encourage voters to vote this in all budgets down school related. In the town, we're trying to consolidate fire departments to have better efficiency. But why aren't we doing that with schools? We all know, you guys all know, that the biggest burden on Bellows Falls Junior High School is the SU. And that is voted on, not by the town, that is voted on by 10 individuals that get their heartstrings pulled. And this school and all the other schools are just given a number and we have to run it. Well, in my household, if I'm spending more, say, I'm gonna cut something else. And it seems like the taxpayers are always burdened with more. It's not fiscally responsible with what we're doing. I encourage you, vote this down and have the WNESU redo their budget. That can't happen. So we have to put a mechanism in place going forward that this doesn't happen. Also on the surplus, it's back to the old shell game of what we're doing with money. So all we're gonna do is say we're gonna give it back to the taxpayers. We have a huge PCV problem in the school. The state has said that they've given us the money up to date, but going forward, where's that money gonna come from? So you have to look at it realistically. Why would we put that money back to the taxpayers when we can use it for PCB remediation. And so if we're gonna not do that, then we're gonna have to go out and get a loan to fix the building going forward. I also think it's a terrible, terrible idea to repair our tennis courts at a huge, huge expense. Very little people play tennis. Again, we want our grounds to look beautiful, but you know what? The juice is not worth the squeeze. We're just wasting money. That repair is not guaranteed. Every board member up there knows that repair is not guaranteed. So you're gonna spend $54,000, and the same thing is gonna happen with the washout. We just had the track repair or rebuilt not too long ago, and yet we have to do it again. So my question to the board would be, what are we gonna do differently to make sure we don't need another track repair in 10 years? We're gonna have more security up there? Well, what are we gonna do? Why didn't we look at relocating the tennis courts if we're gonna do that? Why didn't we look at having the tennis courts in multi-use? You know, I just don't get it. We cannot keep doing the same old, because we're gonna get the same old results. I think this budget lacked creativity and vision, and I think that we could have done a much better job. I really think, I'm disappointed in the WNESU board members who all said yes to the WNESU budget. Because you guys hamstrung not only this school, but Ms. O'Ryan, what she's able to accomplish. Kelly, you've done a great job. I think with all the repairs that we had approved a couple of years ago, it's nice to see them actually come to fruition. Keep it going. So I think we can just do a better job. I encourage all the voters to vote this budget down and come back with a better number for all of us. A third of our budgets in the state last year all failed. We came in at a 3.5% last year, one of the lowest in the state. But now we're going to ask for 8.5%? You know, disappointed is not what people do. I hope they all show up and say nothing. Thank you.
Dave Lambert.
David Lambert, Rockingham. I want to focus on the WNSU budget. I was on the board 25 years ago, and it was very apparent to me at that time that while every school district had their voters vote on the budget, the supervisory union budget is never voted on by the electorate. It's voted on by representatives of the component boards that comprise the WNESU board. I had one board member of this board said it's not controllable. It is controllable if your representatives to the WNESU board take to heart what's going on up there. You had two members at that meeting that approved the supervisory union budget, and they both voted in favor of it. There are many things, I think, at the supervisory union that need to be brought under control. First, there was bus transportation mismanagement issue. That boosted your costs. Administration is growing in the supervisory union. It was brought up by several positions during COVID. COVID's over now, but the positions still are there or have been farmed out to school districts. The business office should be doing its own books at the end of the year. They don't. They hire an audit firm to come in and close the books. That's why it costs so much for the supervisory union to do an audit. I don't believe the supervisory union or any district in the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union has had an external audit for years. The audit firm comes in and does the business office job of closing the books. And it takes them months to do it. There is no audit report in the annual report either. And finally, maybe a small thing, but the dining facility surplus was added to.
More discussion on Article 5. Are we ready to move on? Article 6, Jamie Storrow has that motion.
I would like to make a motion to apply the sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to offset expenditures in the fiscal year 2026 in order to reduce taxes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that the voters of Bellows Union High School District apply the sum of $219,262 levy year 24 fund balance to offset expenditures in the fiscal year 2026 in order to reduce taxes. Is there a discussion on this article? No discussion. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The article passes. Article 7, Chris Hodgson has none.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters of the Bellows Union High School District authorize the school board to create a tax relief fund for the sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to offset expenditures in future years in order to reduce taxes.
Who has the second?
I'll second.
Paul Obolsky seconds that. All right, it's been moved and seconded that the voters of Bellows Union High School District authorize the board to create a tax relief fund, the sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to offset expenditures in future years in order to reduce taxes. Is there discussion on this article? David Lambert.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the motion to read that the Bellows Falls Union High School District apply the sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to reduce expenditures in the fiscal year 2027 in order to reduce taxes, and I'd like to speak to my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, who had the second, Deborah? Okay, discussion on the, we're talking about now the amendment.
Thank you. This has never been done before, as far as I can tell. Usually when there's a surplus to be disposed of, there's 2, 3 actual ways to dispose of it. If the voters don't take any action on it, it is rolled into the next year as a revenue. Traditionally, as in Article 6 that was just approved, the board recommends that the surplus, a portion of the surplus, be credited to a future year to reduce taxes. That's what we did in Article 6. The third option, which has been done in the past, is take the surplus or a partial position of the surplus and move it into the capital reserve fund. Moving it into a, quote, tax relief fund is very questionable in my view. First of all, what is a tax relief fund? How does it work? If you put it in a tax relief fund, does the board able to spend that to reduce taxes during the year? Only if the board goes back to the taxes requesting additional funds, additional taxes, could that happen? There's no mechanism that I know of that would allow the board to reduce taxes unless they put it into a future year. Usually the voters get to decide what year it's to be applied in, not the board, although the board makes a recommendation usually. Also, according to 16 BSA section 567, it requires that if a surplus is identified by an audit, The school board shall carry those funds into the next year unless the voters at an annual meeting decide to use it for a specific purpose, like apply it in 2027, or create a reserve fund for these. So I imagine what you're talking about is creating a tax relief reserve fund. That comes with its own special requirements under the law. A reserve fund has to be accounted for separately from the general fund. The balance in the reserve fund has to be reported at every annual meeting, as Paul just did with the capital reserve fund. I think it's too much of a mess. I think we either have to apply it to 2027 to reduce taxes as we did in Article 6 for 2026, or we have to roll it into this year as a surplus.
Can somebody give us clarity in the tax relief?
Yeah, so to answer, the reason we did not move it to 2027 was because in 2027, we may not need any money to go into the budget to reduce the budget or reduce taxes. So the language, my understanding is came from School Board Association that said that it is that setting up a tax relief fund. And what would end up happening before any of that money is spent, we will come back as we did in Article 6. If it's needed in 27, and let's just say that it's not. So in 28, we would come back and say, we would like to take the $219,000 that is in the tax relief fund and use it in 2028. So the reason we didn't put it into 2027 is because we may not need it in 2027.
All right, David.
A couple of things. Number one, if you just roll it into 2027 and you produce a surplus, then the voters deal with what to do with it next. You're not going to spend the surplus. If it's there, the voters have to decide where to put it. Secondly, you've got two bonds, two $2 million bonds. You're going to start paying for the roof in 2026. And then you're going to pay for the roof and the parking lot in 2027. You're going to need some money to do that.
We're discussing the amendment, the amendment to the Article 7. The amendment to Article 7 would have the $219,262 spent in 2027 as opposed to a tax relief fund. Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Are we ready to vote on the amendment now? We're away from the main motion. All those in favor of amending Article 7 to expend the $219,262 in 2027 to offset taxes, all in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the amendment?
No.
The noes appear to have it.
Division?
Mr. Lambert calls for division. Can I have a show of hands? How many are in favor of the amendment? They have, I count 8 people in favor of the amendment. All those opposed to the amendment? 6. I count. Yeah, I'm counting. I'm 7, 8.
8, 8. I don't have my hand.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
All right,
8.
everybody.
8 and 8.
8 in favor, 8 opposed?
8 and 8.
So the amendment would then fail.
That is correct.
Okay, so we're back to the main motion. Shall the voters of Bellows Falls Union High School District authorize the school board to create a tax relief fund with the sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to offset expenditures in future years and reduce taxes. Mr. Lambert?
Just to let everybody know, if this motion fails, then the surplus, $219,000, gets rolled into the next year automatically. It doesn't go away. It gets rolled into the next year.
Okay. Any other discussion on the main motion? Cheryl?
Cheryl Charles, Westminster. Just a clarification, Andy, I think you got some recommendation that that language was appropriate. I'm used to the word reserve of fund being used. So I'd like a justification for a tax relief fund being the terminology.
I don't have that in front of me. That was the language that was given to me as a recommendation. Ed Connors, also our new business manager, that was the language that has been used in his previous districts as well. So, we would set up a fund that would be for tax relief in the future, that would be earmarked for that. And then as the board would make recommendations, as Paul explained, would be how we would use it, so.
Kim?
How is it based, the threshold for what is considered needing tax relief for the following upcoming years? I mean, is it if you're over a certain percentage, or what's the threshold? Who determines that we need to use the tax relief fund? I mean, it's not, it's.
I would think that would, sorry, that'd be a recommendation of the board. So if you have a budget that has a 1% increase and a $50,000 increase to the taxpayers, then you may not use any of the tax relief fund to reduce that budget.
Wouldn't it still help the taxpayers, even if there's not an increase?
Yes, it would, because eventually the only thing that this money will be able to be used for is for tax relief.
So what would be the disadvantage of putting a year to it then?
Because let's say next year we level fund the budget and there really isn't a need to use those funds because the taxpayers aren't going to see any increase. If you say we will use the $219,000 in 2027, and that's what the motion or the amendment was trying to do, then you would have to use that money.
Right.
There you go.
I think Juice was up first, so.
So if, for clarification, so if this article fails, the 219,262 gets rolled into surplus. And then at our annual meeting next year, we can make another recommendation. Or another question is, if this gets rolled over to surplus and we need it, when we start remediating the PCBs, then we can use it for that.
Correct. Can you speak to that one?
I really.
So if the motion fails, if Article 7 fails and the 219,262 rolls over into surplus for next year's budget, then it's at the discretion of the board what to use that for? Or do we have to go back to the taxpayers and say, we have PCBs that we need to remediate, sorry. So can we use that 219,262 for that? So it just sits there basically if this motion fails.
The question takes into account that the taxpayers would have to approve the expenditure.
But do we need to direct the surplus? So
I might go to the bottom line.
that's what my.
I believe it goes to the bottom line, and so it automatically would reduce your expenditure, your total expenditures for next year by that 219,262.
So
by an additional,
it would be the additional.
It's an additional 2,019,262 off the whole budget. So it immediately goes into that. Does that make sense?
Mr. Moderator?
But if I could.
I'm sorry, I don't know who was first.
I just wanted to have a point of clarification on the tax relief fund. The way that would work is based on just the way Paul was explaining, if there was a $50,000 increase, the board can come back and recommend only $50,000 gets used out of that 219. So it creates an opportunity that if in a year you only needed $50,000, you could access the $50,000 and not the whole 219. And then it continues to roll. So then the following year, in fiscal year 27, if you needed another $100,000, it's sitting there, you can pull from it. So it becomes like a savings account that you can come and grab when you need that total dollars. It's not use it all at once. So you can use what you need out of it.
Just for taxes.
Just for tax purposes.
Just for tax purposes.
Ready? Dave, I think you're first.
The law verbiage says that any surplus not voted on by the taxpayers to be applied somewhere else is rolled into the next year as a revenue. There's no conditions on it. So if we start getting PCV costs that are not reimbursed by the state, that revenue is sitting there to be used for that purpose. If you're concerned about it rolling over again, becoming part of the surplus, that could happen, yes. But you've got an additional revenue if you defeat this motion. You've got additional revenue. It may add to the surplus. It may change a deficit into a minor surplus, depending on what the numbers are at the end of the year. It just becomes another revenue for the current year.
Mr. Terry's next.
So back to my original point, it gets confusing when we start talking about we're going to use for taxes, but now we can use it next year for something else if the board deems appropriate. So I personally would like it a lot cleaner. I think PCV remediation is going to be a problem. You're not going to get any more money from the state. These guys all know it. I would prefer it to be clean that way and fully transparent. And Paul, I'm going to hold you to it. If you're going to let the fund the budget, it's the first time I've ever heard you say that. So maybe next year. Thank you.
Sarah Charles.
Thank you. This is a clarification that I'm not sure about, I'll say quite honestly. But it was my understanding that if there were surplus monies in any budget, that if they were not voted upon for a specific use by the public, they would go to the general fund.
Yes.
That means they don't stay in the high school budget. They leave and go to the state.
No.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding. And that's what I've been told for a long time. That's why we go to the trouble of specifying where the money goes by asking the voters to vote. You're disagreeing with me, so help me understand that. That's just what I've heard for a number of years, that if we don't take action, then that money that's a surplus goes to the general. But help me out.
Okay.
Which would be why I would think it's a good idea to specify where it goes.
Yeah, undesignated surplus goes to the state general fund. Anybody address that question?
I would not want to do it on the fly,
Right.
but I can try.
Yeah, Deborah?
Deb, right. I find that board that does not have all the financial answers, and I'm listening to members who are questioning what's going on here too, would indicate that without someone from the business office, you can't answer these questions clearly or give us more questions from the answers that you give us because you're not clear or don't understand it fully. That's what a finance director is for. And that person should be here so that people from the SU, people in the public, and people on the board actually understand what's happening here, which in my feeling motion should fail and let it go where it needs to go based upon the state statute. So
about education. That sounds good. Thanks.
Chris Hodgson?
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favor of the motion, and I recognize all of the points that have been made here. Again, I'm going to apply my simplified thinking on this, which is what I applied as we were going through the budgeting process. And that is, in my understanding of the mechanisms that would be at play here, by making this motion in the way that it is, and by approving this motion in the way it is. When we use money to offset tax burden, we're essentially applying it as revenue, because otherwise that revenue is going to come from the taxpayers. And if that need for revenue is generated by PCB needs, in a small way, because sometimes the approach to dealing with PCBs is incremental. So if there is a small piece of that in the next budget, then part of this can help support that. And I'm just playing to that example that was shared here. But again, the reason I'm supporting that is because this does give the district the opportunity to manage the burden on the taxpayer. What we don't want to see is an extreme burden followed by a lesser burden, followed by an extreme burden, followed by a lesser burden. And by giving the district the opportunity to parse out some of this revenue over time, I think we're doing a service to the taxpayers. That's my opinion, but I'm sharing that with you because that's why I will be voting for the motion.
Yes.
Is that not what we've continuously done in the past that has been a colossal failure?
No, this is the first time that I have seen a tax relief fund be created. So when you say, is that?
But why does that make more sense than keeping money in the school? Taking care of the building like we have not done?
Well, I think the answer to that question calls for a reflection on the current budget that we're asking for, which again, I feel like does take care of the building. But if there isn't a need in the following year to take some sort of action with this revenue, then we get to do it at a time where it makes more sense. And I'm just saying that's the reason I'm supporting the budget. This motion.
Just for clarification, I did go back and look through my emails and do have an email from one of our legal counsels. And it's 16 VSA 567 regarding surpluses. And according to Mr. Tui, who's one of our attorneys, what I'm reading here, he would agree with what Mr. Lambert has said, is if an audit reveals a school district has a surplus funds, the school board shall carry those funds into the next year as revenue unless authorized by the voters at an annual or special meeting for the purposes of establishing a fund or a specific fund or.
What was the last part of that, though? Do we have to establish?
So it's either putting it into a reserve fund or into a fund for specific purposes.
That's what I said, yeah.
But the first part is shall carry the funds as revenue into the next year. So it doesn't go back to the ed fund, it carries into your budget.
Stays local.
It stays local.
Is the problem the fact that the article doesn't call for a tax relief?
Well, the second part is the fund for a specific purpose. So the subsets are deposit the funds into a reserve fund established pursuant to 24 VSA 2804 or use of funds for a specific purpose. So under that second part, that the way this is warned would meet that level.
That's right. Tax.
It would meet this.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The way I heard that was that if we vote this down, then it goes into a reserve fund, which stays local, and then next year we can
No, it doesn't go into a reserve fund. It goes into
The revenue.
your budget as a revenue. So,
Yes, that's-
so we get revenue from different sources. So you get a grant is revenue that comes in, or taxes are revenues that come in. So your budget at 8.9, it literally goes in there as a revenue source that comes in. As we spend down, if we overspend by, $200,000, there's nothing left at the end of the year. So if we were to go $9.1 million, it would all be absorbed because you have that fund. If you all of a sudden had, a boiler that went down and you needed to put that money into a boiler, you could go ahead and go ahead and expend those funds because it's already in your funds as revenue. So it's just money that's coming into your general fund. And essentially, how that money is spent is up to the board during that fiscal year.
So, Paul,
One thing I read a while back was actually the electrical panel could be between $300,000 and $600,000. I was just curious if that's going to be covered by insurance, or if we could put that money towards the maintenance department if they need it to repair that electrical panel. I don't know if insurance is going to cover it or what's happening with that. I read in the paper that could be quite a costly thing.
Mr. Lambert?
When I first made this proposal, I stated, I don't know how a tax relief fund, even as a reserve fund, could be used to reduce taxes. Because you set your tax rate at the annual meeting. On Tuesday, we'll be voting for the budget, which will result in a tax rate. How do you use $200,000 in a reserve fund to reduce those taxes? If you just roll it in as revenue and you get extra PCB costs they have to take care of, you've got the money there in revenue, you can use it. But you can't use a tax relief fund dollar to pay for PCB costs. Because the purpose of that reserve fund is to reduce taxes, not to pay for PCB remediation. I don't see how that would work.
Mr. Terry?
Thank you. Just point of clarification. So Andy, I believe you mentioned, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. If we have a budget and we overspend that budget by $200,000, that $200,000 could be used for what we overspent on the extra budget. I think that's what I heard you say.
The motion fails.
If the motion fails and it goes in as revenue, so
Spend it on anything.
the board that fiscal year can spend it on anything they want. And so if for some reason we overspent, it would get absorbed through that. If we underspent, then it would carry over it would be found as a surplus for the next year, and then they would come forward with
And who's going to monitor to make sure that we don't overspend so that doesn't happen? Who monitors that? So if you have a budget, if I have $900,000 in my checkbook, that's all I'm allowed to spend, who's going to monitor that I'm not only going to spend $900,000?
that is one of the governances of the board.
Who's responsible?
That is the governance of the board, of fiscal management.
Virginia Driscoll, Rockingham. I want to make sure that I'm understanding as well. The purpose of this is to set aside specific money to plan for the future of our taxpayers. And when I'm hearing questions about where this money could be spent elsewhere, is basically people not wanting to do it, which is totally fair. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this is, from what I can see, a well-written way to set aside and plan for the future of our taxpayers. I also have a question about if there's an opportunity when it's set aside to earn more interest than it would if it's left in the general budget, because that is a way for us to actually low-key increase the benefit for our taxpayers And I also see a reason to lead out a year, and that's to allow for flexibility without having to spend extra time. Because if it is needed in the next budget, that you're able to do that with this measure. And if it's not, you're able to move forward without having to touch it. Am I understanding that?
That is correct.
Question as to whether this money could be in an interest-bearing account, did anybody answer?
Yes, it would be.
Thanks.
Is there other discussion on Article 7? Article 7, shall the voters of the Bellows Falls Union High School District authorize the school board to create a tax relief fund with a sum of $219,262 from the fiscal year 2024 fund balance to offset expenditures in future years in order to reduce taxes? Are we ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Anybody, I think I'm gonna ask for a show of hands on this one. All those in favor of the article, please raise your hands. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Wait a minute.
9. All right, all those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's, I see 6 hands, so the article passes. All right, so Article 7 is passed. Article 8, Priscilla Lambert, how's that in that motion?
I make a motion that we approve an annual compensation to school directors in the amount of board chair, $800, board members, $700 each, district treasurer, $800, district clerk, $125.
A second for that motion?
Second.
Second by Paul Wilson. It's been moved and seconded that the voters approve annual compensation to school directors. The amount of board chair $800 and board members $700 each. District treasurer $800, district clerk $125. Is there a discussion on this motion? Oh, Mr. Terry.
Is that an increase from last year?
Yep.
I'll check. I had a minutes from last year. I think it's the same. It's the same thing as last year.
I think so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other discussion? All right, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of the article, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, the article passes. And I don't see an article for any further business, so
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Paul Wolski moves to adjourn. Seconded by Rob Wells. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then we declare ourselves adjourned.
Anyone?
Thank you, everybody.